Am I the asshole for not wanting to name my child after my late husband? Me, 31, and my current husband, 35, recently found out that we were expecting twin boys, and my first husband's mother is livid that we aren't naming one of them after her son. A little background. My first husband, Michael, and I were college sweethearts. We got married not long after graduation, and I thought I would be with him for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, we were only married for a couple of months before Michael passed away suddenly. It was one of the worst times in my life, and I never thought that I would ever fall in love again, much less get married again or have a family. I remained very close with Michael's mom, my Mill, and she was very supportive when I eventually started dating again. Not long after I met my current husband, John, I took him to her house so that they could meet. She was so excited to meet him, and I remember going to the bathroom and crying tears of relief that she wasn't angry at me for moving on. When John and I got married, she was so happy for me, and on my wedding day, she took me aside and told me that she knew Michael was happy for me too. It meant so much to me to hear her say that. Earlier this year, John and I found out that we were pregnant. At first, Mill was ecstatic, making jokes about being a bonus grandma, and asking to help plan the gender reveal party and baby shower. But then when the subject of names came up, she was shocked that we weren't planning to name the baby after Michael. I explained to her that if it was a boy, we were going to name him after John's father. I could tell she wasn't happy, but she seemed to accept it. Things took a turn for the worst after my 20-week ultrasound, when we found out that I was carrying twin boys. When I told her the news, she flat out told me that I had to name one of the babies after Michael, or she would never forgive me. When I told her that we weren't going to do that, she absolutely flipped, saying that I was betraying the memory of her son. I tried to make her understand that as much as I love and miss Michael, that chapter of my life is over, and I feel like it's disrespectful to John to insist on naming one of his children after another man. At first John said that he would be fine with it, if it was what I wanted, but eventually he admitted that the idea made him uncomfortable. I never want to make my Mill think that I've forgotten Michael or that he wasn't important to me, but I don't want to name one of my children after him either. And honestly, I don't think he would have wanted me to. There are better ways of remembering him than giving his name to a child that will never have any real connection to him. I tried explaining this to Mill, but she just wouldn't hear it. She told me that she would never speak to me again, if I didn't name one of the babies after her son. She's been a really important part of my life, and I don't want to lose her, but at the same time, I feel like she's giving me an unfair ultimatum. Am I the asshole? Update. Wow. Blown away by all the feedback and support. We are hosting in-laws, John's parents, so I can only add a short update for now, but I promise to leave a longer one when they go home in a couple of days. For now, I just want to address a few things I saw in the comments. A lot of you wanted clarification as to how long Michael has been gone. It will be 10 years this October. And no, Michael is not his real name. Any names that I've included in the post have been changed to protect anonymity. A lot of you also wondered why I am still close with his mother after so long. I probably should have included this in the original post for context, but there are a couple of reasons for this. Michael was an only child and his father was never in the picture, and she has virtually no other family left besides a handful of cousins who live across the country. Over the years, she's been my steadfast supporter, always the first to encourage me to live my life and be happy. Funnily enough, I might not have met John if it wasn't for her. A friend of mine had set me up with him on a blind date, and I almost backed out. The only reason I didn't was because my ex Mill convinced me to go. Honestly, she is the last person I ever would have expected this from, which is why I've found it so hard to deal with. A lot of you have said this is probably her being forced to finally deal with a lot of unprocessed grief, and I think that's probably true. I think at some point I stopped thinking of her as my Mill and started thinking of her as a friend. I thought that she'd come to think of me in the same way, but now I'm realizing that at least a part of her still sees me as Michael's wife. I am hopeful that we will find a way to work it out, but I am prepared to let her go if it comes to that, even though it would make me terribly sad. To those of you who said I should start putting up some boundaries with her, you're probably right. I honestly, though all of the bonus grandma jokes were harmless at first, but now I have started to think otherwise. I don't want to make any rash decisions yet until we've both had a chance to calm down, but as things stand now, she has a lot of work to do in the way of regaining my trust. As to where I stand on the name issue, I am not going to name either of my children after Michael. For those of you who were worried I might cave on the issue, don't be, it was never an option. I briefly considered doing something with a middle name, but ultimately decided against it. I don't want to burden either of my children by naming them after a man they will never have any connection to. As to how we honor Michael's memory, every year, John and I go visit his grave on his birthday. It was actually John who started the tradition, the year we got engaged, and we haven't missed a year since. Maybe someday when they're old enough, we'll take the boys. I don't know how exactly, but I'm sure I'll find a way to explain to them who Michael was and what he meant to me. For those of you who asked if this was having a negative impact on my marriage, the answer is no. John has been my rock through the entire pregnancy, and his only concern during this ordeal has been my emotional well-being. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that if I wanted to name one of these babies after Michael, that he would let me and never say a word about it, no matter how much it hurt him. Which makes me even more determined not to cave on the issue, because I refuse to repay his selflessness with selfishness. As to where things stand with ex-Mill and I, my brother's wife, is good friends with her. They teach together at the same school. So right now she's acting as a sort of go-between. She says that she thinks ex-Mill is having a long overdue emotional breakdown. We both agree that she has avoided fully processing her grief, and now it's all coming to a boiling point. She's pushing hard to get her to see a therapist, and I'm hopeful that we can salvage at least some of our relationship. But if not, I'll find a way to live with it. And finally, to the handful of commenters who insinuated that I am still in love with Michael and that I'm not being fair to John, let me just say that until you've been in my shoes you won't understand. Michael and I were very young when we got married. I loved him very much and he will always have a place in my heart, but John is absolutely the love of my life. It took me years of therapy, but I don't feel guilty about it anymore. Thank you all so much for commenting and leaving your thoughts. It's helped me so much to process things and sort out my emotions. Planning to see ex-Mill later this week after current in-laws leave, and I will be back with an update as soon as possible. Not the asshole. And #X200B. We all grieve differently. It's your child to name, and if you don't want to name them something, don't. Name your child what you and your current significant other think is right. And #X200B. Your Mill is an asshole for putting this ultimatum on you. She's hurting bad though. Burying your child is one of, if not the worst things in this world. Up to you if you want to give her a pass on being an asshole about this versus just cutting off the connection yourself. Not an easy choice. And #X200B. Congrats on the new babies though, and good luck in life. Not the asshole. It's great that you have maintained great relationship with your late husband's mother. That doesn't change the fact that your kids have no connection to Michael. It would be unfair to your husband and to the kid. Does your name have a story? Oh yeah. I was named after my mom's first husband. The name should be imports NT to both of you, or at least have some logical meanings. It's not like you were in a poly relationship and one partner died. Also, where I live, it is said that it's bad luck to name a child specifically after someone dead. Not the asshole. I think it's time to break ties with her. Your husband must be a really patient man. Not the asshole. She is giving you an unfair ultimatum. As difficult as this is for her to understand, those babies are yours and John's. It sounds like she may be struggling with her grief about not getting to meet any of Michael's children and is trying to compensate for that. You might lose her over this, but do what feels right for the family you have now. It sounds like you knew Michael pretty well and know how he would have felt about this. Not the asshole. You are showing love to her and your late husband by continuing to be in her life and giving her an opportunity to be a bonus grandma. That's amazing on its own. But her insisting on your son being named after hers is weirdly like she sees the twin situation as an extra baby to kinda replace the son she lost. She sounds totally unreasonable, but maybe the grief of her loss is welling up as she considers the grandson she could have had biologically that never came to pass. Edit. Changed names to named. That you were married for but 2 months is tragic. But it's not a lifelong commitment to keeping the torch lit. This is well past even complicated grief. She certainly needs some help, and you might as well. Name your baby what you like, not what someone else does. Not the asshole if you do this. You are the asshole if you hang on this old grief. Not the asshole. It might be time to move on from your ex-Mill, and as you specified before. That chapter of my life is over. Because of how irrational she has become, the same should apply to her, as it seems like you both are still holding on to your late husband through each other. Her wanting to name another man's child after her late son, and you for being unnecessarily patient with her despite moving on and starting a family with someone else. Right now you have a family, a husband and twins on the way, and if she wants to get in the way of your happiness, then you'll have to cut ties with her. You have to put them first now. Not the asshole. It's kind of scary. It sounds like she's trying to replace her son through one of your babies. If she insists on the name, what's next? It is not understandable that she wants one of your kid to be named after her son. It's freaking weird. All of this makes me uncomfortable and I'm not living the situation. I would put some distance with that woman. She sounds toxic. Am I the asshole for saying, because I work, when my nephew asked why my child has a nice toy? Cultural context. It sounds weird, but the women in my family aren't expected to work. You're actually looked down on if you do, as it insinuates that your husband isn't good enough to support you. Arranged marriages are a thing too, and generally a prospective partner is picked for you based on their wealth and social status. Their personality or looks just aren't that important. I'm trying to keep the word count down explaining this, but I do want to mention that as old-fashioned as this sounds, I've seen these marriages succeed at around the same rate as the non-arranged marriages I've witnessed. With that out of the way, I married for love. My husband is awesome, we gel on an emotional and intellectual level, he's hot AF, and nearly half a decade into marriage I'm still waiting for the honeymoon period to end. Even better, he doesn't base his sense of worth and masculinity on whether or not his wife works. Dude is freaking proud of what I do. My husband is from the same culture as I am, and as bad as it sounds, we would never have matched with each other because he wasn't at my level of status and wealth. His brother got a wife the traditional way, and she doesn't work. She really sweet, we get along, but it's clear she kinda looks down on me because I work. I send my kiddo to daycare 3 days a week, and she's dropped comments about it in the past which I just brushed off. I don't blame her, it's just the way she was brought up. OFC, because we're a 2-income family, I could set up a nursery for my child and I have a cute playroom for them. When my nephew and niece come over, twice a year for about a week, they always have the time of their lives. I always send them home with gifts so they aren't too sad when they leave. Anyway, I had bought my child a play kitchen for the playroom, and when my niece and nephew came to stay, they loved it. It was too big to let them take home, so I figured I'd order it online for them. While I was sitting with my Sil, my nephew started asking why they didn't have one at home. My Sil said something to the effect of, because it's too expensive. My nephew then asked, well, how come my child can have one? Without thinking I replied, because I work. As soon as it was out of my mouth I knew I'd fucked up. To make things worse, my nephew started asking his mom why she didn't work so he could have play kitchen. She scolded him, then was standoffish with me until they left 2 days later. I didn't send the play kitchen because I wasn't sure how she'd take it. Before I get asked why I didn't apologize, I had no idea how to. I really like my career, my child is happy going to daycare, they are a very social toddler. I'm not ashamed of working. I am ashamed of how I probably made her feel. TLDR. I made my Sil feel bad about not being able to afford new toys for her son because she didn't work. Am I the asshole? Updates, edits. Oof, I posted this at 3 a.m. in the morning. The typical time my past socials faux pas come back to haunt me, and didn't expect this many replies, so thank you. To clarify, I am extremely privileged to have received an education and opportunity to have a career. Yes, I got a lot of flack for it, so I'm definitely sensitive. But I also recognize that not all the women in my family got the opportunity or encouragement to work, which is why I'm leaning towards myself being the ah. For the record, the only reason I got higher education was because my mum convinced my dad that no man wanted an uneducated wife. Sounds terrible, I know, but my dad's come round. I have had comments that I'm the equivalent of a prostitute though, so that's kinda sucked. I don't look down on women who don't work. I stayed home until my kiddo was 18 months before putting him into daycare. I have a lot of respect and admiration for women who make that decision. I am very lucky to have spent that time with my child, but as much of a crunchy granola mum that I was, I recognized I wasn't fulfilling my child as well as a qualified educator could. Hence the 3 days a week. When I first met my Sil I was still a som, so we got along really well. While she told me that she decided at an early age that she didn't want a career, and that she asked to be taken out of school early, I can't help but feel that she was encouraged to do so and did it because, well, what teen enjoys school? But at the same time I respect her enough as a woman with her own agency that would work towards her decisions. My brother-in-law honestly wouldn't mind if she decided to go back to school, but I suspect the pressure and judgment of her family would keep her back. It was only once I started transitioning back to work that she started making snide comments. I still think I'm a good mum, so it didn't really bother me. I recognize that what I said was insensitive and probably sparked a conversation with her son that she wasn't ready to have. Yes, brother-in-law and Sil aren't as well off. But there's a saying in our family that goes, "You take what your husband gives you," which essentially means that you should be happy with whatever your husband earns. When they come to visit, it's part of our hospitality culture to utterly spoil guests. So my husband gives everyone spending money, the kids get new clothes and toys, and I cook ridiculous amounts of food. Nah. It was a slip of the tongue, and while maybe a little harsh, it's also true. Not the asshole. I doubt the sister-in-law ever apologizes when she says things about you working. I'd let her get over it on her own the same way you do when she makes one of her comments. Nothing you said was a lie or purposely hurtful. Sometimes the truth stings a little. She should take some time to reflect on herself. If she brings it up, remind her of her past tasteless comments and tell her you are proud of your family dynamic. Don't see the need to apologize. Remind her you didn't ask for her to apologize in the past for her comments about you. Not the asshole because it wasn't intentional. However, an apology is warranted. Not the asshole, you were just being honest, it's really that simple. If Sil doesn't like it, then she can get a job. The end. You are the asshole. All the people saying, "Well, it's true," no it's not. There are millions of two-income families that can't afford the extras. Op and her husband obviously are paid pretty decently. That isn't guaranteed just because they both work. It was an asshole thing to say. Maybe the Sil has made snide comments in the past, but she did nothing wrong here. She was honest with her child that they couldn't afford the playset. There's no shame in that. Op turned it into a contest with her comment to Sil's child. Op should have apologized for crossing a line, especially where the kids are involved. She is an aw, but she is ta. Not the asshole. It was a true statement. As for not knowing how to apologize, you don't have to apologize for having a career, being able to afford nice things, or your child being happy at daycare. Apologize for making her feel bad and feeling as though your choices are better than hers. It wasn't your intention, but it's likely how she took it. So apologize for how it made her feel. That's it. No assholes here. You two inhabit different worlds that overlap due to marriage. Frankly, ignoring this would be even worse. Nah. You told the truth. You're a two-income household, and you can afford nicer things than if you stayed home while your husband worked. You can't bridge all cultural divides by yourself, and you may find yourself running headlong into complicated feelings from family members about why don't follow cultural expectations. As long as you're not malicious about it, it's not your fault for answering a question honestly. If anyone's nose is bent out of shape about it, that's not a you problem. Am I the asshole for not stopping my daughter, letting her humiliate her uncle? I, 31F, hubby, 34M, and our kids have spent a week with my in-laws at their place. Sil's family lives close by, so we spend time with them as well. In-laws are cool, we get along great. My Sil's hubby, 40M, is an ass. He's loud, he takes up a lot of space, and his idea of fun is to embarrass, shame others, especially if they don't act like they should for their gender. No one gets away, not even his wife or kids. His boys are not allowed to wear pink or do any girly shit. His daughter must act like a lady, and was refused to pursue the education she wanted, car mechanic. We don't have a traditional marriage. I do maintenance on our cars when needed, same with our garden and house. I fix whatever needs fixed in and outside the house, etc. etc. Basically everything men would be expected to do a few years back. Hubby does lots of the daily house chores. Brother-in-law often make jabs at me for not being feminine enough, and hubby for not being manly enough. A housewife shouldn't be covered in dirt and oil like that. A dress would look pretty on that body of yours instead of whatever it is you're wearing. Maybe your husband should step up for once so you don't break a nail, and similar comments. It obviously pisses me off. I have promised hubby not to confront him in public, so I haven't. I have talked to him in private, but he just brushes me off, calling it some good old banter between in-laws. Sil says nothing, ever. Our oldest kid have not promised anyone not to confront him in public, though. A few evenings ago we were sitting in their living room after dinner, chatting and having a good time. I got up to get myself a beer. Hubby asked for a cider. Brother-in-law immediately drew his breath, and I knew it was coming. When you didn't think the roles could be more reversed. Our daughter, F13, looked up from the board game she was playing with her cousins, stared at him and asked, "What do you mean, reversed roles?" She looked at me but I didn't say or signal for her to drop it in any way. The rest went along the lines of, Bill, "Oh, it's just something we adults say as a joke." D. Looks around at everyone else. Huh. I thought jokes were supposed to make people laugh. No one's laughing. Bill. Well, some people just don't get the joke. D. Or maybe they just don't find it to be funny. Not everyone gets off on sexist comments and jokes. Bill. Oh, we're using big words now. He actually started to laugh, albeit nervously. D. Do you need me to explain sexism to you? The boys in my class also laugh and goof around when subjects they're not mature enough to comprehend comes up. At this point brother-in-law huffed, got up and left the room, clearly pissed off. Things were tense for a couple of minutes, then we were back to having a good time. Hubby later that evening got a text from brother-in-law saying he should get his kids and wife under control, and teach the kids to respect their elders. Fuck that. Shit went down the following days, the family is split 50-50. So am I the asshole for not telling her to keep quiet? Edit, info. Yes, we ignore his comments. When he doesn't get a reaction, the attention he wants, he stops and the remainder of the gatherings are awesome. I've known brother-in-law for 16 years, hubby has known him for 25. Everyone has at one point tried calling him out but it doesn't work. Ignoring is more efficient, although he just have to make a comment before he realize no one's listening. We have talked to our kids about this as well, that his behavior obviously isn't okay but if no one gives feedback he'll drop it. Final edit. Alright. Hubby and I have had a serious long talk, after showing him the comments on this post. We see that we're TAs for subjecting our kids to brother-in-law. Not what this am I the asshole was about but Reddit speaketh the truth once again. Even though they know his behavior is not okay. We honestly thought talking to them about it, explaining our reasoning behind ignoring and not bother to confront etc. was enough. We realize we were in the wrong, and we will talk to the kids about it and how we should have, and will in the future handled it. It will most likely be 6-9 months until we see Sil and the in-laws again. We have already now decided that whenever he makes his comments we will just up and leave. No explanation, just take the kids with us and whoosh. If that doesn't work after a repetition or two, we will inform in-laws that we will not attend gatherings etc. where he will be present. Going NC is, as I already said, a last resort. The kids, theirs and ours, goes along amazingly. I love spending time with Sil as we have a lot in common. I would very much hate to keep the kids from seeing each other, so hubby and I hope that our plan will work. It will take some time to find out since we don't see each other often. I'm fairly quick to say others should go NC when there's toxic family involved, and it's obviously easier said than done. Thanks everyone, for taking the time to reply. Especially thanks to those with constructive feedback, comments. Your child is my hero. However, she should not have been the one to do that. All of you should have shut that shit down long ago, gone LC, NC. Why does your husband not want you to confront him in public? It's shameful your child had to be the one to call him out. That's not her responsibility. You and your husband need to have a serious talk about this. You are the asshole. Edited to add judgment. Quick edit. I'm really glad to see the outcome of the final edit. Good on you for listening, absorbing information, and making changes. Keep it up. Hooray. Not the asshole for letting her speak her mind. But you are the asshole for subjecting her to that sexist and cruel environment. Seriously, why would you want her to be taught that sexism is okay and it should be ignored? Everyone sucks here except your daughter for enabling the sexist asshole to keep the peace. I have promised hubby not to confront him in public. Info. Why? You are the asshole, and so is every other adult in your family, for putting your daughter in a situation where she had to be the voice of reason in the room at 13 years old. Be prepared for brother-in-law to increase his sexist remarks and probably aim more of them at the one person who is willing to stand up to him. You and your husband need to step up and be ready to protect your child. Not the asshole. Your daughter is amazing. Not the asshole, she didn't humiliate him, she told the truth. If he felt humiliated then that's his fault and maybe he should take that as a call to stop being an asshole. I'm not sure why your family even spends time with him, and hasn't just walked out when he makes comments like that. Good thing your daughter's been paying attention. Not the asshole. The worst thing you can do with a person like that is to keep quiet. Keeping quiet isn't keeping the peace, it's letting him think he's right, he's funny, and everyone agrees with him. Why on earth would you keep quiet about someone who's clearly making everyone else miserable? Am I the asshole for not sharing a bank account? I, 29F, have been with my fiancé, 30M, who I'll call D, for 10 years. We are supposed to get married in the fall. We don't currently live together, and last week we met with a financial advisor. I've been working with him for 6 years personally. My fiancé has never spoken to anyone about finances, so we picked him as I trust him already, to talk about combining assets as we plan on completely sharing finances. I was worried I'd be bringing very little to the table. I finished my specialized training last year, so I've either been a full-time student with no actual income or making a very small salary that hardly covered my bills since high school. I basically have my car and minimal savings, but I have paid off all my debt. I currently make about 75% of D's income. D's been working for the last 6 years in a very well-paying job, so I figured he'd have more assets. His finances were so terrible my advisor actually called to speak to me after our meeting to telephone me to keep my finances separate from D's. The reason is that D is essentially supporting 7 other adults, his parents and 5 siblings, 4 are adults. His parents had 7 kids and can't support them on one minimum wage income. They had a lot of government aid, but now that the kids are adults, that stopped. I knew D helped out when his siblings were younger. I thought it was admirable that he was willing to help ensure his siblings had a decent home to live in. Now that they're all grown, I don't agree with continuing to help like he is. And honestly, now seeing what he actually paid, I think it's always been way too much. In the last 3 months he spent over $15,000 on them for things like repairing the roof, putting in an AC unit. AC is not standard or necessary where we live, heat is, and then paying for them to run it, etc. I'm floored. I told him I wasn't comfortable sharing bank accounts anymore. I tried being diplomatic, but instead it turned into a fight. He was angry that I don't want to help those in need and only my family. I have my brother all my savings, 5 kelvins, last year when he fell on hard times, but he's paid me back almost 3 kelvins. I wouldn't mind helping his family occasionally. Or if they used the help to try to turn things around. My family can give and take. I gave my brother money because I knew he was going to put it to good use. D's family just takes, spends and asks for more. I'm worried if we share accounts then D will start giving my money away too. I told him the only way I can see this working is that we keep things separate. We split bills equally and control our own spending money, though I worry how this would work with kids. I just don't want our family to suffer for his family's mistakes. D is calling me the asshole, as is his family and some friends. D went around telling our friends about how I'm a hypocrite and don't trust him. Edit. Thank you for all the support and advice, everyone. It is appreciated. D ended up seeing this post and it forced my hand a little earlier than I was prepared for. But, we talked, argued, but ultimately we're done. He admitted to hiding this from me because he knew I'd be upset and want him to go back to counseling. I didn't realize he stopped therapy last year. He never said he was still going, but he did imply it a number of times and admitted to hiding that too. He has a lot of baggage. His parents did serious damage to him, and while he really has done an amazing job of getting out of that situation and breaking the cycle, he's got a lot of baggage. And unfortunately that baggage is not something I'm willing to carry because I just can't trust him anymore after this massive lie. He feels responsible for his siblings struggling so much, and while he hasn't said it, I think he wants his parents' approval too. He knows it's not healthy what he's doing. But he also admitted that he doesn't really want to stop because, again, he feels like he owes it to help his family since he's the only one who's done well. He doesn't think a family needs a big house, an apartment is fine, or that kids need extra activities like piano or dance lessons. He thinks we would be fine basically living off my salary, and we would. But it won't be the life I want, and I don't think I'll ever trust him again. And I don't want that kind of marriage. It breaks my heart, but I need to leave for my own sanity. Not the asshole, and if your financial advisor went so far as to warn you, I'd take his advice. Fiancé calling you the asshole and bad-mouthing you to others is so very not okay. If that is how he acts about this, what happens when you have other big disagreements like buying a house, having kids, how to raise them? Don't tie your finances to his, obviously, and get a prenup even, if you go through with this. Not the asshole. I'd suggest you reevaluate everything in the relationship. His family is now full of adults and all he is doing is enabling them to be leeches. They're calling you names because you just burst their bubble. Not the asshole. You're not being an awe, you're being smart. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Edit. I was gonna refrain from commenting on your relationship, but Together for 10 years but not living together? Him expecting you to make your money available to his family? His behavior towards you when you're just trying to protect yourself. Maybe there's another decision you need to be smart about. Not the asshole. He's upset that he can't spend your money on his family as well. Not the asshole. My husband and I have kept separate accounts the whole 13 years we have been together and it's worked great. We split all bills and he buys what he wants, I buy what I want, no fights. Do not share finances if you aren't 100% okay with it. Not the asshole. He would throw your money to his family in a second, and he can't compare a loan that's more than half paid back to how he supports his family, which he should not still be doing. Could the financial advisor have spoken to him? Not the asshole. His family are parasitizing him. If he is fine supporting them, that is on him, they aren't your problem. However, it might be time to have a hard conversation because once you marry into his family they will likely become your problem. This combined with the fact that he basically chose them over you almost instantly means you might be in for some serious issues early on. Not saying you should run for the hills, but this behavior is one of those red flags everyone talks about. You should definitely really take that into careful consideration. That all sums up to one thing. Don't marry the guy, without some serious counseling, and I do mean financial and mental health. If he can't see the difference between loaning someone some money and being paid back, and just spending money, $15,000, on other capable adults with no hope of recouping those funds, that's an issue. The fact that he is mad at you, and spreading what I can only assume are lies about the situation to turn others against you is the main reason I would require the counseling before I'd take another step toward marriage, if I were you. Not the asshole.